All right, ready to dive into some warm turquoise waters. Today we're talking Phuket and how to snag yourself a piece of that real estate paradise. We've been digging through some insights from Ocean Worldwide Phuket Real Estate, and let me tell you, things are about to get interesting.
It's a really dynamic market right now.
So before we get lost in daydreams of beachfront villas, let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? Can foreigners even buy property in Thailand?
The million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the answer is, well, it's a yes, but with a bit of an asterisk.
Okay, I was afraid you might say that. Lay it on me, what's the catch?
So you can't directly own land in Thailand. However, what you can own is the structure built on that land.
Interesting. So I'm picturing this right. I can't own the beach, but I can own the beach house.
Exactly. You've got it. And this applies whether we're talking a house, a swanky villa, even a charming little bungalow, the land itself. You'd acquire that through what's called a leasehold agreement. Think of it like a long-term lease, often running for 30 years, and often with options to renew.
30 years, that's a pretty solid chunk of time. What happens after that 30-year mark hits?
Well, you typically have the option to renew. In fact, many agreements bake in clauses for automatic renewal, giving you a nice bit of long-term security. And these aren't just casual handshake deals. We're talking officially registered agreements, which means you've got that legal backing.
Registered leaseholds, music to my ears. It sounds like we're really talking details here. The fine print. What's the most important first step for someone serious about dipping their toes into these waters?
Before you even start browsing those online listings for ocean view villas, before anything else, get yourself a good local lawyer. And I mean someone specializing in Thai property law.
A local expert makes sense. What will they be able to help with specifically?
They're your guide, your advocate, your everything. They'll walk you through every twist and turn of those leasehold agreements, make sure all your paperwork is shipshape, and basically be there every step of the way to protect your investment.
Okay, so having that expert in your corner is non-negotiable. Now, I know we're talking a lot about villas and bungalows, but what about condos? There are tons of those in Phuket, right? Is the ownership structure any different?
You're right, condos are everywhere in Phuket, and yeah, they offer a unique advantage. You see, foreigners can actually directly own condominiums.
Oh, no leasehold needed.
Well, there's a slight catch, a little balancing act. You can own up to 49% of the total units in any given development. It's a way to ensure Thai ownership remains the majority. But hey, it still leaves a pretty substantial slice of the pie for the rest of us.
A slice of a condo pie. I like the sound of that. This is already giving me a lot to digest. So we've tackled the can you buy and the how to buy. I think it's time to move on to the really fun part, wouldn't you say? Okay, let's talk property playground Phuket style. Set the scene for me. What's up for grabs in this tropical paradise?
Phuket's got it all, really. Whatever you're after, whatever your style is, chances are you'll find it here.
Music to my ears. Give me the rundown.
So let's say you're all about that luxury life, low maintenance, maximum enjoyment.
Sounds like me.
Right. Well, in that case, condominiums are your new best friend. And I'm talking top-tier developments. Think, like the Andara Resort and villas over in Kamala.
Okay, I'm picturing it. What's so special?
We're talking jaw-dropping ocean views, private infinity pools.
Hold on, did you say private infinity pools?
Oh, yeah. And all the amenities you could dream of. World-class stuff.
Okay, that's definitely tempting. But what about those of us who, crave a little more independence, a little closer to nature?
Yeah, I get it. A little breathing room. Phuket doesn't disappoint there either. Imagine this. A secluded villa, tucked away in all that lush greenery, maybe even a private pool, but this time, overlooking the Andaman Sea.
That sounds more like it.
And the beauty of villas. You own the structure. You're leasing the land, sure, but you've got way more freedom. Design, customization, you name it. It's your own little slice of paradise.
It really does sound idyllic. But let's be real for a second. What about those potential downsides? Any pitfalls I should be aware of before diving headfirst into a villa purchase?
You're right to be cautious. Just like anywhere else, you got to do your homework, research the location, make sure you're happy with the local infrastructure, all that practical stuff.
Makes sense. What else?
And of course, that lease agreement we talked about. Scrutinize it with your lawyer, obviously.
Of course.
For example, you'll want to know if it has any clauses about, say, future development on the property or even around it. You don't want any surprises down the line.
Location, infrastructure, lease details. Got it. Okay, let's shift gears a bit here. What if I'm feeling ambitious? Not just personal paradise, but, entrepreneurial dreams. Can foreigners invest in commercial property in Phuket?
100%. Phuket's tourism game is strong. It's a gold mine for commercial ventures.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of ventures are we talking? Give me some examples.
Restaurants, beachfront cafes, maybe even a boutique hotel. The possibilities are huge.
So, I could be living the dream and running a business. Sounds too good to be true.
Well, there's some specific regulations you need to be aware of.
Regulations, right. Always a catch. What kind of regulations?
Remember how we talked about foreigners not being able to directly own land?
Yeah?
Well, for commercial ventures, you'd most likely need to set up what's called a Thai limited company. And the key here is that Thai nationals, they need to hold the majority of shares in the company.
Majority. How much are we talking?
Typically, it's around 51%. So partnering up with Thai nationals is pretty essential for unlocking those commercial real estate dreams.
A Thai business partner, noted. Okay, this is all incredibly insightful, but let's talk numbers for a minute. Practically speaking, what kind of budget do I need to be playing with in the Phuket property market?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It can vary, of course, depending on what you're after. But let's break it down a little. Let's say you've got your heart set on a luxurious 3-bedroom villa with that private pool in a really desirable area.
Sounds nice.
Right. Well, you're probably looking at a starting price somewhere around $300,000. Now, if you're thinking more along the lines of a chic studio condo in a happening spot like Patong, you could be looking at something closer to $90,000 to start.
Okay, so a pretty wide range, something for everyone then.
Yeah.
From high-end luxury to more, shall we say, attainable slices of paradise.
Exactly.
But I bet those figures don't tell the whole story, do they? What about those hidden costs everyone's always warning about?
Ah, yes, the hidden costs. Always important to factor those in. See, when you buy property in Thailand, you'll come across these things called transfer fees.
Transfer fees, never heard of them.
They're basically around 2% of the property value,
Uh-huh.
and they cover the legal transfer of ownership.
Okay, so 2% on top. What else?
Then there's stamp duty. It's a tax on legal documents, adds another 0.5% to your expenses, and of course, you can't forget about legal fees for your trusty lawyer.
Right, gotta have that expert in your corner. How much are we talking for legal fees, ballpark?
You're looking at something in the range of 30,000 to 50,000 Thai baht.
Okay, so those extra costs definitely add up. It's good to be prepared. So we've covered the initial purchase price, but what about financing? What are my options there? As a foreigner looking to buy in Phuket?
Another great question. Cash purchases are always the most straightforward, of course. But getting a mortgage from a Thai bank?
Yeah.
It's definitely possible.
Oh, good to know.
The terms can be a bit tougher for foreigners, though. Another option you've got is developer financing.
Developer financing. Now that's one I haven't heard before.
It can be a really good deal, especially if you're looking at off-plan properties or new developments.
How so?
Developers, they're always keen to secure those early buyers, so they often put together some pretty sweet packages.
Okay, developer financing. Got it. So let's fast forward a bit. Let's say I have navigated all the legal hurdles, I've secured my financing, and boom, I'm officially the proud owner of a little piece of Phuket paradise.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. But then I remember I live thousands of miles away. So how on earth do I manage this property from afar? That's the question, isn't it? I mean, it's all fun and games until you remember you're on the other side of the world.
Yeah, that's where things can get a little tricky.
So what's the solution? How do I manage my property, keep an eye on things when I'm thousands of miles away?
Well, you're going to want to find yourself a good property manager.
A property manager. Okay, so someone on the ground in Phuket. Makes sense. But what should I be looking for specifically? What makes a good property manager in this context?
First and foremost, you want someone who really knows their stuff. I'm talking proven track record, experience in the Phuket market, the whole 9 yards. They should be familiar with all the local regulations, know the ins and outs of handling maintenance, repairs, all that stuff.
So experience and local knowledge are key. What else?
Ideally, they'll have a good network of contractors they work with, people they trust, who can get things done.
A reliable team.
Got it.
Now, what about renting out my property when I'm not there? Is that something a property manager could help with?
Absolutely. A good property manager, they can handle the entire rental process for you. We're talking marketing, finding tenants, screening them, collecting rent, even dealing with any issues that might come up.
So they're like a one-stop shop for all my landlord needs?
Pretty much. And if you're thinking about short-term rentals, jumping on that whole vacation rental trend, they can even manage the online listings and bookings for you.
Okay, now that's what I call hands-free ownership. That takes a load off my mind. All right, final question before we let our listeners go and start packing their bags. Big picture time is now a good time to buy in Phuket. What's the forecast look like for this little slice of paradise?
Well, the Phuket property market, it's been pretty resilient, especially in the luxury sector.
So those beachfront villas, they're still a hot commodity.
Oh, absolutely. Properties with those killer ocean views, especially in established areas like, say, Laguna or Surin Beach, those are in high demand, and they're only going up in value.
So good investment then.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
But like any investment, there are risks, things to be aware of.
Okay, good point. So what should savvy investors be keeping an eye on?
Government policies are always something to watch, especially anything related to foreign ownership rules. Those can change.
Right, those leaseholds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing is infrastructure. Areas that are due for upgrades, like new roads, better transportation, that kind of thing, those are often good bets for future appreciation.
So it's about being strategic, thinking long term. This
Exactly.
has been incredibly insightful. Really appreciate you taking the time to break it all down for us.
My pleasure.
Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we sign off?
Just this. Owning property in Phuket, it can be a dream come true. It's a beautiful place, and it can be a really smart investment. But you got to go in with your eyes open, do your research, find those local experts we talked about, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Lots of them.
Solid advice. A huge thank you to you for joining us today. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode of The Deep Dive.